Hello everybody. This is a vineyard ramble at tea time today. So it's Saturday. The clock, hi William, great to see you. Bailey Dog and Mark. And I was hoping to bring you a bit of snow or sunshine, either. I haven't managed either of those. It's raining. And I can hear that the clock has just donged 5 in the village of Touchon. So it's a sort of a big bonjour from a rather wet and cold. I think it's about 1 degree here in Touchon. But even in the cloud and the mist, it's absolutely beautiful. So just waiting for you to join. Great to see you, Brad. Mum and Dad in Ashby de la Zeus. Have you sneaked in yet? Kath, good to see you. Topham, ooh, good to see you too. Bonsoir, Karen, great to see you all. So a bit of a change. There's Mum and Dad. Mum and Dad, hello in Ashby de la Zeus. I made it, Mum and Dad. Yes, look, and here is the weather today. But I was saying, even when it's cloudy and it's misty and it's cold, this place is still really beautiful. So I've brought you up to my favourite viewpoint here. We're going to start with the Tosh Mountain behind me. So you can see the Tosh Mountain. There's actually snow on top of the Tosh Mountain. Looks like the snow started at around 700 metres, I would say. So we haven't been that badly affected. I know those of you in southern Spain, for example, Steve, if you're here, I know you've had about 30 centimetres or something. Madrid is just so much snow. So we were forecasted a lot of snow and it hasn't actually happened. So we've just got a nice bit of drizzle at the moment. So there's the Tosh Mountain. There's some cloud and then more cloud, and the cloud today is hiding the Carignan, which is over in the far distance. The Carignan Mountain, which is the beginning of the Pyrenees, the foothills of the Pyrenees. But around you just see the village of Touchon in the foreground. 800 people in Touchon. And in the background, you can't see it, is the village of Paziol, 3 kilometres away from Touchon. And then you can't see the Tour de Totteval either. So there's a Tour de Totteval, and behind that, Perpignan and Catalonia and the Pyrenees Orientales with Cerbère, Collioure, and the wonderful summer beaches. Pan round, a bit more cloud, the Mediterranean here, and then the Château d'Aguilar, our 11th century Cathar castle. Can't see that at all today, but that's over that direction. And pan round. And here you can, this is the Narbonne direction, about an hour away, and then we have our lovely olive tree here, and the famous rock. So one of my ideas today was to actually either have a cup of tea or a glass of wine on this rock, but unfortunately, given the weather, I'm not doing either of those. But I hope you have a nice cup of tea. Anybody got a cup of tea? Is anybody actually having a quick taste of wine? Has anybody got a bit of warming fitu? I think when I go back this evening, I'm definitely going to have a bit of fitu. So I've brought you up here just to show you 2 types of vineyards today. So I'm in Jean-Marc's vineyard, and this is the Carignom Vineyard. And then the idea is I walk down the hill and we end up in my 110-year-old Carignon Vineyard at the bottom. So just a lovely gentle stroll in the rain this afternoon. Talking about rain, I know we've all got the expressions now for when it's cold, if you can remember them, the froid de canard, etc, etc. And today let's talk about rain. So first of all, how do we say it's raining? So I've got some really good things tried and tested on my mum and dad just now. So if you want the real French accent to say it's raining, here we go. So you have to say eel, like the slippery eel, the little, is it a fish, a mammal? Eel, or fish, I think, that lives in the water, eel. And then you make the sound of the letter P and L. So P, le. Put it all together, eel, ple, ple, ple. Eel, ple. Perfect. And Jean-Marc understood my mum when she went, il pleut, it's raining. If you want to go a bit further with the raining, you can also say there's some wonderful, wonderful French expressions, quite descriptive about when it's raining a lot. My favourite, I think it's my dad's favourite as well, is il pleut comme les vaches qui pissent. So basically it's raining like cows weeing. Il pleut comme les vaches qui pissent. Or you can have it's raining string as another very popular one. Il pleut des cordes. But as Jean-Marc pointed out to me, it's doing neither of those today. It's just sort of dribbling a bit. And so il pleuviote. Il pleuviote, he said. It's not even il pleut, it's il pleuviote. And talking about Jean-Marc, let's have a look at his Carignan vines here. So these are some of his younger vines. These were planted about 25-30 years ago. Some Carignan, and the stage we're at the moment, you can see that they have been machine pruned. It's quite difficult to see actually, but the tractor's been in and they've been machine pruned here. So Jean-Marc's are trained on wires. And when I was walking here, look, just have a look here. Any questions, by the way, please just put them in the question box. Look, somebody's been really busy, so I'm going to be quite quick over this little bit here, because like over here, look, this is really fresh. This wasn't here even like yesterday or the day before there, and it's dug down. Salut céréales, ça va? Et bon courage pour la suite. Justine, everybody, big welcome to Céréales, Ferrand de Sissi, who's just joined us. Céréales is about to have twins, literally about to pop. So good luck, Céréales, for that. And hello from all of the Ramblers. And look at this here. Oh, it's being quiet. This is a badger hole. And there's there, and round over there. So quite a big badger set here and fresh scufflings here. So I'm not quite sure how we're going to get rid of those. They are quite dangerous in themselves, and also for the tractors. If the set caves in when Jean-Marc's on the tractor, could be disastrous. So as we walk down, I just thought, for those of you, I thought there might be some new Ramblers with us today, given that we're at a different time. So I was just going to quick recap. Domaine Jones, that's my domain, and I'm based in Tuchamp. We're in the Languedoc-Roussillon border, and I have 15 now little tiny parcels of very old vines. And my husband, Jean-Marc Astric, he has the same amount of hectares, but he has about 5 vineyards, so a little bigger and a little younger. And we're down here in this wonderful valley in Tuchamp. Did you notice these white flowers here? Anybody know what they are? So some lovely white flowers. This is actually wild rocket. So you may have got the connection's a bit slow today. I think it's because of the weather. Wild rocket. Yeah, thanks Jilly for welcoming any new Ramblers that might be with us. And here you can see better where it's been pruned it's been top pruned with the tractor, a machine on front of the tractor, you can see here. And as I wandered down here, I thought, as well as taking in the soil, so this is a clay limestone soil, I just remind you of the history that we were looking at. It's actually before Christmas now when we looked at the history of the vineyard. So I was just going to do a very quick recap and then just let you know what we'll be looking at in the next couple of vineyard rambles. Just take in this wonderful, cloudy, cold, wet, but beautiful south of France. So, oh, it lost me. So did my signal go? Is everybody else there? Brad, was that your signal? You're back. Great, you're back, Brad. That's no, not me. I just keep going. Whatever happens, I'll keep going. So, very carefully walking down here. And I was just going to recap on the history. So I've been looking into the history of winemaking in this area. It's been absolutely fascinating, something that I'd never really had a chance to look at. But to share it with the Ramblers, it's just been really, really fascinating for myself. Sorry, I will get onto the history, but look here. those of you that were with us with Jean-Marc and Michel the other day, and we saw his tooth machine on the back of the tractor. So he's been doing it in this vineyard too. So he's been ploughing just with that one tooth, just to break up the soil, because it's very compact, is what we found from the soil analysis. So here, the tractor's been down here, just one tooth every other row to break up the soil. So on the history, just a quick recap as to where we got to. 1840 was really when it all kicked off in Touchon. That was like the golden era of vineyard planting, and it was from 1940 up until about the 1900s and early 1900s. Really, that was when vineyards became a commercial crop, and people really became a monocrop around here. It kicked out sheep and wheat plantings that we used to have before. So up until 1840s up until the beginning of the 1900s was really the golden era. And even despite phylloxera, things were still going well. But then beginning of the 1900s, if you remember, I know Gilly liked this one, it started to all go a bit pear-shaped. Now it went a bit pear-shaped because of overproduction. So massive overproduction, which made the prices tumble and collapse. The price of wine just totally collapsed. Overproduction, and those of you who've been rambling, I know you know why there's overproduction. There were a couple of reasons. My favourite one were the fake wines. So people actually, because wine was selling well, so people started making wine out of sugar and the lees that are left, so the byproducts of wine, and water, and also from dry raisins brought in from Turkey and Greece. So fake wines. A lot of wines are imported from Algeria. So Algerian wine imports, also Spain and Italy, but mainly Algeria. And these imports came in. They were welcomed in when there was phylloxera to fill the gap when the French vineyards were out of production. But then when those vineyards came back into production, they still had those imports. So again, that contributed to the overproduction at that time. So we've got fake wines, imports, cheaper imports coming in from Algeria, Spain and Italy. And then we also had, what else did we have at that time? No distillation allowed there either. And basically, and then we had, that was the one I was searching for, we had a couple of bumper crops. So on top of a high production, we then had bumper crops in 1905 and 1906, and those bumper crops just led to complete collapse of the price of wine. It started getting a bit tough. Vineyard workers went on strike, so there were strikes by the vineyard down tools, vineyard workers on strike. They got what they wanted, their demands were met, but then things just got worse and worse. Big harvest, and it ended up in those massive riots of 1907. So for those of you who are following me, you'll know who Marcelin Albert was, the leader of the revolution. If you haven't, and if you are interested in the history, then these IGTV videos they're up on my Instagram page, so you can fill in on all the details. They're the last two just before Christmas. So we got up to 1907, and it was crisis time. Big demonstrations. They managed to get like 600,000 people demonstrating in Montpellier in 1907, and that all culminated in Narbonne in June 1907. Big riots, and Clemenceau, the Interior Minister, brought in the troops at the time, and they actually shot into the crowd and killed 5 people and injured 38. That was the end of the riot. So basically quelled by the military. 25,000 soldiers were brought into the Languedoc-Roussillon to calm down the situation. So after those riots, the government intervened basically in winemaking, and they brought in rules and regulations. So they brought in rules and regulations to control wine production, to control plantings, new plantings, distillation. They forbade fake winemaking and adding sugar to wine as well. So a lot of controls came in after those riots of 1907. And in actual fact, a lot of those controls are still in place at the moment. So we have to fill in a lot of paperwork for when we do the harvest, when we do a new planting, when wine circulates. As soon as it leaves our production, our domain, it has to have a paperwork with it. So a lot of those rules still here today. So I don't know whether to thank those people of 1907 or not. Just as I'm here, these are Jean-Marc's olive trees that he's been really working on, and he's pruned them all. Fortunately, it hasn't pruned them like he's pruned his favourite one over here, sort of the Japanese style, but he's pruned them a lot. So we've got a little olive grove, and olive growing is going to be another topic of mine during the week, how that was important in Touchon as well. But coming back to Touchon after 1907, things got better. There were government intervention, rules and regulations set up. So again, it was a time of relative prosperity for the people in Touchon. And that was also helped by the building of the little train. So there was a train, Le Petit Train, a train station built in Touchon, which helped them to transport the wine out. And that's actually where my winery is, in the little train station in Touchon. So for those of you who haven't been, we'll go and see it. That will be another of my rambles, and we can have a look at the history of the train station and the train line up here. So they got training after 1907. They got telephones as well. They got telephones in 1900 in Touchon. Does anybody know if that is early? Because for me it sounds really early, especially in a sort of a French backwater or French La France profonde. But telephones were installed here in 1900 basically. They had telephones, they had the train, they had new rules and regulations. They also had bonuses if they distilled. So distillation came back in to control the production as well. And so relatively prosperous there was up until 1929, when unfortunately there was a very big harvest again, overproduction, and riots again, and distillation came in big time. But up until 1929, it was a relatively prosperous time here. I think there was also the First World War in that period, but the vineyards became extremely neglected during that time. The harvest of 1915 was one of the smallest ever in France, basically because they didn't have any workers on the vineyards. And that's when France welcomed a lot of Spanish workers to come in, especially in the Languedoc-Roussillon, and to start working and helping on the French vineyards. And just one other thing that came in at this time, which is again a great topic that we can look at, was actually they started the idea of an appellation. So an appellation system, or a way of protecting the quality of the wine that was coming from the Corbière mountains. Because up here in the Corbière, naturally we have low yields because of the terrain. And that was in the plain near Narbonne, it's very flat. They had much higher production, so a different style of wine, whereas up here it's very good quality. And the people of the Corbière really felt it was time that they protected that quality, and with the creation of an appellation. Now we're only in 1907, it was after the riots, but already people were starting to talk about that and creating a Corbière appellation. So they didn't immediately create a Corbière appellation, it was a VDQS for a very long time before it actually became appellation in 1985, so it's quite a long time after that. And in between that there was also Fitu, that was the first appellation. So there's a whole section of why were these appellations created, and they were created as a result of the 1907 riots too. And then perhaps, how could I forget, almost forgot, one of the biggest changes around here after 1907 was the creation of the cooperatives. So a very big cooperative movement that came in where the farmers could join together, work together, and bring their grapes into a cooperative. And the government really encouraged the creation of cooperatives. In the Languedoc-Roussillon, it's a bit later, it's in 1930s, but there were 229 cooperatives down here in this area. Touchon, the cooperative in Touchon, I actually worked there for 15 years, and that cooperative started in 1913, so it's one of the very first cooperatives. Got a fascinating history as well. Anyway, that's enough on the history lesson. I thought this was going to be a good idea to walk down here and to show you my old vines. I'll just show you my boots. My boots before, so I'm just going to go very carefully down here. My boots weigh a ton. It does tell you that the terroir is very clayey because it's wet and just sticking to my boots, but we'll just perhaps come down here and stand on the top here and we can see two of my little parcels of old vines. Now Jean-Marc's just cleared this path here with his digger. Ooh, that took him about 2 days. And then this is the Macabeau vineyard here. So the Macabeau. And oh, William, just saying that, is VDQS a step up from Van der Pey? Yes, at the time, we will look into this, but I believe it was the only sort of the only appellation for wines. Vin de Qualité Supérieure, I think it stood for, VDQS. And that was where it all started. But I will come back to that, William, and I'll reply to you in one of my future rambles. Right. So here we are in the Macabeau. So you can see the Macabeau, most of my vines, apart from the Syrah, are all trained as bush vines, or gobelets, in the shape of a gobelet. Roger, he's been out pruning, hasn't quite done this bit. I know why he hasn't done this bit, because it's really steep. As my dad knows, this bit's really steep here. My dad does a top pruning here, so he hasn't. So I was going to try and get down there, but I'm sort of stuck in the mud here. So I think I'm going to leave it here for today. Thanks, everybody. See you on Tuesday, 8:30 French time, 7:30 UK time. So back to normal time. See you on Tuesday, everybody. Bye.